Doubting Thomas. We tend to use that a lot. We're even in conversation about someone who's doubting something, we might refer to them as a doubting Thomas. We might refer to each other as a doubting Thomas in conversation. And it is, as one commentator has described it, as if doubting Thomas, as if Thomas were the designated doubter of the group. And yet, when we use that name only with regard to one person, we miss out on a lot of the other stories around the resurrection, and we miss out on a very important part of the story of the resurrection of Jesus. Okay? Now, there are 4 Gospels, we know that, and there are 4 different stories of the resurrection, and they're populated by different people. And in the story that was read last Sunday, Mary Magdalene is the one who goes to the tomb. And she notices that the stone has been rolled away and that the tomb is empty, Jesus is not there. Well, her first thought is not to say, he is risen indeed. No, her first thought is, where is he? Where have they put him? I need to take care of his body. So she's still in pre-resurrection thought mode here. She's saying, I need to deal with this dead body. Okay. If we go to Luke, we have Mary, I think it's Mary the mother, I've got it marked. Mary the mother, Mary Magdalene. Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and there was a group of women that went to tend to his body because he was buried the day before the Sabbath, and because you can't work on the Sabbath, the women who would normally do the work of caring for the body could not do the work until Sunday morning, until after the Sabbath is over. So they had gone there on the Sunday morning, which in those days was just a weekday like any other day, to do their work, which was to tend to the body of Jesus, and he was not there. Okay? And so we read, very, very briefly here, that Mary went back to the disciples, and the women came, all of the women came to tell the apostles that Jesus' body was gone, and that the angels were there, and that they had been told that he had risen. Okay? And what we read here is, these words seemed to them, to the apostles, an idle tale, and they did not believe them. Except for Peter, impulsive Peter, who jumps up and runs to the tomb. So we have still here this energy of, I would almost say disbelief. This is, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That kind of energy, not so much and I think embraced in grief as well. Embraced in grief and in fear. So what we have is, the story is that after things have come to, everything's quieted down, the crucifixion is over, Jesus has been buried, and there's probably still some residual restlessness and fear around this crucifixion. And Jesus' apostles, his 12 closest, have hidden themselves away in a locked room for fear of being persecuted, possibly arrested themselves as co-conspirators. So they have locked themselves in a room. And Jesus comes into the room and says, peace be with you. And the first thing he does is he shows them his hands and he shows them his side. As if to say, see, it's really me, in case you had any doubt. Not to mention the fact that he could walk through a wall and be present, just in case there's any doubt after that. This is who I am for real. Okay? Now, Thomas was not there. And so when he's told later about this appearance, he also cannot believe it. okay? But he is not the only one. We have doubting Mary Magdalene going, where have you put his body? Cannot even recognize Jesus when he stands before her because she cannot comprehend this concept of resurrection. When Mary and the other women go to tell the apostles that they have seen the risen Christ, they can't believe it. So to call Thomas the only doubter of the bunch does not do him justice. In fact, in the Gospel of John, Thomas tends to have a stronger role than even Peter and John at times. Now, if we remember, there's a story where Jesus is going back to, he's been told that Lazarus has died, and he's going back to Bethany. And the apostles are telling him this is not a good idea, because recently he'd been threatened with stoning. Okay? The last time you were in Bethany, they did not like you. And they tried to stone you to death. And you really want to go back there. Interesting. I'm reading just at verse 7. He said to the disciples, I read this wrong. He decided to go back to Judea from Bethany. Judea is where he was threatened. And the disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you. And are you going there again? And then Jesus talks to them. And then it is Thomas who says to the disciples also, he says, let us also go, that we may die with him. So, if you want to give Thomas a name, you could call him Thomas the Courageous. Very courageous thing to say. When Jesus meets with his disciples in the upper room prior to his arrest, he is talking about the faith. John's telling of the story is so deep and it's so mystical. How Jesus talks about what he's going to be going through. And he says to them, I'm reading from the 14th chapter, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again, and I will take you to myself, so that where I am, you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. And Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? So he could also be Thomas the Curious or Thomas the Confused. Because a lot of times I think Jesus' words were met with, especially in the Gospel of John, I think Jesus' words were met with some mystification or confusion. So I think to call him Doubting Thomas is probably not fair to who Thomas really is in the Gospel of John. But he represents to us, in a way, the totality of our walk with Christ and the totality of the experience of all the apostles. When there was a time to be courageous and to return to Judea with Jesus, it's the words of Thomas that express the courage to follow Jesus when times were starting to get a little dubious and a little unsteady. When Jesus was trying to explain to his disciples why it was important to be of good faith and to not be discouraged in the events that are to come over the next couple of days. It's Thomas who probably expresses best the thoughts of everybody in the group, saying, I don't get it. I'm not understanding what you're saying to me. I hear the words. I'm not understanding. So Thomas, in a way, becomes sort of the personification of the universal experience of all the people who follow Jesus. And he becomes the voice of the humanity that followed Jesus and believed in him and accepted his teachings, accepted his healing. And what Thomas is asking when Jesus comes forward the next week, he isn't asking for anything more than anyone else asked for, except they didn't have to ask for it. If you recall, the first time Jesus comes into this room, the locked room, he says, peace be with you. Here are my hands, here's my side. Yes, it's me, as if he were anticipating their doubt. He gives them not a chance to say, prove it. But Thomas wasn't there. And all he's asking for is his fair chance to have that face-to-face with Jesus. Okay? And he did the same thing. Exactly. It's a parallel. He says, peace be with you. He turns to Thomas and he says, here I am. Exactly. He did not wait for Thomas to say, prove it. He was there. Jesus is very patient with our doubts, very patient with our struggles, very patient with our journey and its sort of wandering, wayward path that we walk toward him, because he's come to bring peace. Peace be with you. Now, he can say collectively, peace be with you, as in our service, peace be with y'all. Or he can turn to you one by one and say, peace be with you. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. It's the collective and it's the individual, all in one word. Jesus meets each of us right where we are. Not with judgment, not with impatience, not with exasperation, not with folded arms and a tapping foot going, what took you so long? Right where you are right now. And there's nothing that can keep him out. A locked door might keep out the Roman soldiers or the Jewish hordes, but nothing you can say, nothing you can do, can put up a wall or lock a door to grace. It just shows up. And it says to each of us, peace be with